dias, Gunners Collective TV. Back at it, you already know. Like a motherfucking smack addict. Bye up, bye up. In a menudo style and direct fashion, we're going to get straight into the content of the day. But before we do, let's hit that like and subscribe button. Put your notification bell on all so that way you're directed in the direction of the dope content that I am kicking. And I highly appreciate all the support. We're going up on this channel. It's all because of you. And for that, I can say I'm very humbled and I'm very much appreciative. So gracias. So I wanted to talk about a California prison melee or riot that never gets talked about. No one speaks up on it. I've never heard this story told, but I'm going to tell you the story. And the story's a little bit different. Why? Because the rapper, producer, and owner of GT Digital's Black and Brown, the Thiz movement, Thiz Latin, was actually on the yard when this riot went down. Yes, indeedy. I wrote graffiti on the bus, right? Goldtoes was on the yard in San Quentin when this riot kicked off, between which was the LA Crips and the Nortenos, but basically was the brothers, man, versus the Nortenos, man. It kicked off viciously and violently, and Goldtoes lived to tell the story. He was actually there, trip out. So I know you guys have watched, those of you who know who Goldtoes is, he's a Northern California representative, man, been putting homeboys on since the beginning of the history of Northern music. You know, he's been doing that, and he's very renowned, world renowned. You know, he's making moves, he's making empower moves, wearing shower shoes everywhere, man. Europe, across the United States. He's based out of Houston, Texas, really doing it, man. And is instrumental in every Latino artist, all the raza throughout the nation. He's instrumental in some form or fashion in them doing what they do. He's opened up so much doors. And basically has laid the red carpet out for Nortenos and even Southsiders, man, to walk down, to get into the industry. This man definitely has a good heart and is definitely a real one when it comes to helping out his gente and his people, man. He gets hated on, but he's definitely respected by everyone that knows what's up, man. I definitely give Goldtoes the ultimate respect because I know without him being a mover and shaker in the industry, you know, a lot of the raza right now throughout Northern California and all over the United States wouldn't be in the position they're in. This man definitely opened a lot of doors, and he should be given his flowers now, not later, man. Real talk. But for those of you who know who he is, there's a video that was put out a long time ago of him doing an interview in San Quentin prison. And I always wondered, how the fuck did Goldtoes finagle his... I mean, this man can get everywhere. This man is everywhere in Europe, everywhere in the United States, doing big Lollapalooza fests and chilling with Jay Diggs, and him and Burner are wilding out in New York. He's kicking it with Wiz Khalifa, kicking it with Too Short, kicking it at the fights that just happened this weekend. He's just doing all kinds of crazy stuff, right? If you really look into him. How did this man get in San Quentin? This man was able to get into a high security prison and kick it with the homies, right? But we've all seen that video where he did the interview with the Nortenos, man, and he let them shout out their body, their homies, their hood, and looked like he was very comfortable. Now, at the same time, I always wondered how he was able to bring cameramen, microphones, and actually kick it with the active Norteño homeboys in the San Quentin prison yard and just get away with it. Now, I understand that he doesn't have a criminal record, so I can see where they would let him in. But come to find out, he actually went in with the United Homeboys cause, right? There's an association or a group in the Bay Area that's kind of like a victory outreach program, man. They help, you know, homeboys, they help people that were incarcerated. They help people get on their feet. They help the community. It's a very big community project in the Bay Area, in Frisco, Oakland, the whole East Bay, man. And they help a lot of people out. And so he was able to hook up with some real ones from the United Homeboy cause, man. And that's how he was able to finagle his way in to San Quentin prison on that day. They were going to do some speaking, some crowd encouragement. They were going to speak to the prisoners there. And he found himself on the yard amongst the Norteño collective and was able to interview some and chop it up with them. And of course, being respected as much as Goldtoes is for putting Norteños on in the rap game, they definitely opened their arms, embraced him, showed him the canalismo, and he was allowed at that time, man, to post it with the homeboys and you know, spit some knowledge, spit some game, give them some of that knowledge they couldn't get in college, and in fact, gain some knowledge from them. Now, up until this point, Goldtoes has never been in a prison, I'm sure, right? Maybe had did some county time, but had never actually walked the yard. So I'm sure this was something new to him to actually see how the homeboys function at that time on the prison yard. And I'm sure he got an eyeful because what happened that day has never been spoke on. this is the untold story of what happened that day Goldtoes pulled up. So he's there with the United Homeboys, and of course on the video we see he's interviewing Vatos from Mountain View, Sanjo, EPA, San Francisco, and some of these guys he actually knows from the streets. And I can only wonder what was going through his mind, kicking back with the Nortenos, knowing some of them have to stay there when he gets to leave. Now, there's envious Vatos from everywhere. People that are going to trip like, damn, the homies got love, man. But I don't think the Nortenos were thinking that way. I think they were thinking more so of, hey, man, we're finally on camera. We're finally going to get action at shouting our hoods out, letting people know what it is. And that Bay Area living, man, they got a different swag than the Valley. See, in the Valley, I could tell you right now pretty much, Goldtoes would have came in, Homeboys would have been hype. But I always wondered why they were allowed themselves to be put on camera. Because this is back in the days when Norteños were not allowed to be on camera. You know, I remember being in the Merced County Jail, and they had a Scared Straight program that came, and they were filming it. And we actually blocked our faces, turned around, walked away. Because there was an unspoken rule, and not even unspoken. It was just out there that we were not to be seen on camera. We were not to let people know what our program is at any level. Now, albeit the Norteños did not talk about their program, what they had going on their yard that particular day with Goldtoes, but they definitely were seen on camera, and they looked presentable, and they definitely looked professional in their willings and dealings. I heard Vatos shouting out their hood, representing the Norte, and then I heard other Vatos talking about stay good, stay in school, and give some positive energy out there and some clecha for the youngsters that were thinking about prison is the place to be. And Goldtoes was instrumental in that, because up until that point, we had never seen anyone that was really living that street life, really in the music industry, or really around real life gang members being able to do something like this. So it was definitely, what would I say? It was unheard of, okay? It was groundbreaking, period, which is what Goldtoes does, a lot of groundbreaking stuff. So as he's doing these interviews and everything, what happens off camera is the story. So after Goldtoes was done talking to these guys, they started to go on stage and do rap music, throw a little rap concert, and at the same time, talk to these guys, give them good, positive influence, let them know that there was another thing going on the streets, that they could definitely tap in with the United Homeboy industry. So when they got out, man, they could, have a place to go to, because there's a lot of people that don't got family support in prison. They can't get a job because of the criminal record or even get housing. It's very hard, And it's hard if you don't have someone there to support you and let you know how hard, how it isn't very hard. There are options. There are places that will take you, when you get out of prison, that are felony friendly. But this is definitely an organization and a group that wants to help people. And like I said, Goldtoes was rocking that good rhyme. He was in there giving back to the raza and definitely giving back to the northern cause. Letting homeboys know, man, that there were those homeboys on the streets that really did care, rather than them that are just trying to put them in harm's way. But there was something brewing there that day. Okay, when Goldtoes and the rest of this group were there giving their presentation and speaking to people on the yard, which they were allowed to do for the first time in San Quentin, this would definitely be their last time. Because something was going on behind the scenes, something that had been boiling for a few days prior to Goldtoes getting there, right? Now, Goldtoes, of course, was out of the loop. I don't know if someone pulled him to the side and let him know, hey, something's about to crack off or pop off, or if he felt his antennas wiggling, right? If there was any indication. But obviously there wasn't, according to what I seen and what I heard through mutual acquaintances, man, that Goldtoes was there. He was on stage giving his speech, letting people know what was going on. And there was plenty of blacks on the yard. There was plenty of woods on the yard. And of course, a gang of Norteños. There was no Southsiders on that yard that day. Okay, at this time, that yard just had a Norteño presence. And as Goldtoes is speaking to the masses, to the people, and people are feeling it, there was some shit going on. Fileros were getting passed around. Huilas were getting passed around. Vatos were getting ready for guerra. They were getting ready to pop it off. Now, prior to Goldtoes getting there had been some beef going on between the LA Crip car and the Norteños. Something that was boiling over, and this particular day, it was going to spill over to the yard with Goldtoes there not even knowing. So from what I heard was that Toes was actually doing his presentation. He had just finished when a Norteño took flight on a LA Crip, and it popped off on the yard. Now, from what I heard from a mutual homeboy, he told me that Goldtoes was snatched by the Norteños off the stage and drugged to a safe area and said, hey, post up right here, it's going down, and was witness to what happened on the yard that day. Now, imagine you're a civilian. Yes, you live that street life, that gang life, but you don't really know, because prison is totally different from the calles. Okay, it's a whole different world. And imagine being placed in this world where I'm sure where they tell you, hey, look, you're taking your life in your hands. When you go into a facility, whether it be a minister, a church, people from the streets that are civilians just wanting to help out, they are told at the gate, definitely, man, hey, anything can happen, and you're putting your life in your hand, and your life is in their hands. You know, if the yard decides to go wild and wild out and wiggle, it just is what it is. You better find you a corner to dwell in. More than likely, man, if you get caught up in the situation, you're going to be victimized. So the Norteños kicked it off that day while Goldtoes was on the yard. Not even 20 minutes after that video was filmed, the infamous video we see of Goldtoes interviewing the Norteños, them guys right there were already getting ready to smash. Okay, they already had a plan. And one thing I could tell you about prison is when something's full go, something's in motion, nothing will stop it. Okay, the only way a riot or a melee or a removal or something like that, a pegada, gets stopped is if that individual somehow doesn't make it to the yard, or the IGI figures out what's happening beforehand, the ISU, and they slam the yard down. And even then, man, I told you I was in prison one time. There was 3 18-streeters. Shout out to 18, man. No disrespect. There was 3 18ers walking. One of them was in bad standings. He didn't know it yet. The other 2 had big-ass pedazos. They were waiting on him. And as these 3, and they were actually crime partners, as these 3 were walking the yard, the IGI slammed the yard down because they were aware someone had dropped a huila that there was going to be a pegada going on. And as that yard went down, I remember I was close to the basketball courts with a couple homeboys. We went down, we took a knee, made sure that, you know, this is what happens. When the bell goes off, how the Norteños were laced up, you don't just get down on your stomach, homie. You take a knee, kind of survey the situation, make sure that, you know, none of the homeboys are getting ran up on, nothing's happening with the homies. And then if you notice, okay, it's none of our business, then at the same time, you either sit back to back with the homeboy looking in each direction, or one homeboy lays down this way, the other homeboy lays down that way. Basically, it's a security measure, so you know if something pops off on the yard, let's get it, right? So I remember that day taking a knee, looking around, and seeing 3 18-streeters, which were not even 20 feet away from me, and the IGI started to circle, and they started to search people. And as they got closer to these guys just broke out big old bone crushers and started getting to work, right? Getting busy on that dude. And it was an ugly ass situation. I mean, very ugly. The cops came, they were hitting dudes with batons. These dudes one was hitting them. They would drag him off. The other one would come back. He'd start hitting him. They'd drag him off. The other one hitting him. I mean, it was crazy, right? And I remember up until that point, I had never seen nothing like it as vicious as that. I had seen plenty of pegadas, plenty of removals, plenty of stabbings. But I had never seen something that up close and personal that I wasn't involved in, right? So it was crazy. So I could only imagine Goldtoes that day being there when a full-blown riot kicks off. Now, let me tell you something about San Quentin, for those of you that have been there. And I have never done time in San Quentin, but I got a lot of family and friends who have done time, and I feel like I was there just by how they describe it. The blacks are very deep there. There is a lot of brothers there, man. You know, that's the Bay Area. That, of course, is the Bay Area reception. And I'll be honest with you, the blacks probably outnumber the raza in the Bay, man, 3-1. Okay, it's just what it is. Oakland, Frisco, Richmond, Berkeley, the whole Bay Area, especially the East Bay. In the South Bay, you'll have a more Mexican presence, but definitely in Frisco, Oakland, Richmond, that area is predominantly black. You do have Mexican spots, but they're not as deep. So San Quentin has about, I'd say, the ratio of 70 to 30% black. It's always been like that, right? So there was actually more blacks on that yard that day when the Norteños decided to kick it off. There's probably 30 or 40 Norteños, maybe 100 to 150 blacks. Right now, the problem wasn't with the whole black population. The problem was with the Crips from LA for whatever reason. I don't know the details on why exactly, what led up to it. But this is a perfect example when people say, well, we know blacks and Norteños rock together. Not always. Okay, you could ask the guys that were in High Desert in 2007 on B Yard, man, how that went with the Kumis, right? It's definitely a situation where every group's going to stand for their own and represent for their own, period. San Quentin, like I said, the brothers are very, very thick. And there's definitely a big Kumi presence, a big Bay Area presence. So the LA Crips couldn't have been that deep. But of course, the way the blacks rock in prison and the way Mexicans rock, north or south, you can't decipher who exactly is a Crip or a Blood or a Kumi unless you know them personally. You kind of just get off where you're mad at. Now, everybody knows who the Norteños are. You could tell a Norteño from a Southsider and a Paisa. You can tell if you know. But with the blacks, you can't really tell, man. So it cracked off. Like I said, as soon as Goldtoes was done giving his speech, as he started to walk off stage, he got snatched up by the Norteños and drug off the stage and put in a corner for his own safety and security. And they smacked it off, right, with the Crips. Of course, all the blacks got involved, so it was a full-blown riot. Now, it's always tripped me out why no one's ever spoken on this, okay? And this one riot right here, you know, it's dangerous. San Quentin has a very notorious reputation for a lot of blood being spilled back in the 60s, 70s, and of course the 80s. Now, San Quentin isn't the same San Quentin it was back then when Blood In, Blood Out was filmed, right? It's not that same type of situation. And for the most part, Norteños and blacks at San Quentin do coincide and do get along very well. So this had to be a very, very tumultuous situation for this to go like that. You know, I've been involved in melees with blacks, whites, everybody, not Southsiders in prison, but blacks and whites definitely, right? Even the Native Americans at one point. Shout out to my indigenous people. It just went down how it went down. The natives rushed us. But it just was like that, right? But it happens. It happens. And for it to go down with Goldtoes there, man, I'm very surprised that he has never spoken on that situation or ever told that story, right? Again, this is a Vato who's very well respected, man. And I remember one of the homeboys that told me about this a while back before I even decided to put this story out, told me he thinks that they got off because the blacks were mad that a Mexican group was allowed to come in and do what they were doing. And they felt that they were showing more favoritism or love towards the Norteños, the Mexicans that were on that yard. And I'm sure there was some favoritism going on. I'm sure the brothers did feel some type of way because Goldtoes was over there hanging out with the Northerners. But one thing I know for sure is that man is a pioneer in black and brown. He started black and brown in 1997, 98. And he's always pioneered that way, man. He's always rocked with the brothers. And I can tell you this, man, that the blacks in the Bay Area and throughout everywhere got so much love for Goldtoes in abundance. It's crazy, right? The brothers rock with him to the fullest. He's always done a lot, put a lot on, man. Was very instrumental in Messy Marv's career. Was very instrumental in San Quentin. Fucks with Jay Diggs to the fullest. Filthy Rich. All these different guys, man. Definitely has been a pioneer and steered, Burner the right direction, and he has become a household name, you know, especially if you're off that cookies. You know what it is. But this is a story that Goldtoes has never told. And quietly as it's kept, it wasn't a situation where the blacks were jealous or mad or envious or nothing. It was a prison in-house situation between the LA Crips and the Norteños, and the Norteños got off that day. Now, there was a rumor that went around later on. There was a rumor that Goldtoes actually supplied the Norteños that day with weaponry, right? There was a couple knives found on the yard after that melee that were street knives, buck knives, right? Not your traditional fucking shank or pedazo, right? And Goldtoes was questioned. He was questioned by brothers, and he was questioned by other Norteños on the streets to ask, did he produce this? This was not the case, man. From what I'm told by the homeboy, that Toes had no idea whatsoever that this was going to crack off and didn't go there with the intentions of causing any type of turmoil or any type of drama, man. Just went there to help. And that's what the United Homeboys are known for, man, out there in the Bay Area. They help everyone, black and brown, man. And they're just that type of group, man. They're all about lessening recidivism, lessening people going back. And they're all about helping people that feel that they don't have other options, you know. And they're a great group. And I respect their movement and what they're doing, just like I respect Victory Outreach and what they're doing, man. It's about time that we have people that want to help, you know, those of us that have done time. And I commend them on the positivity and what they do. And I commend Goldtoes on being a part of that and affiliating with that. But subsequently, since this riot happened that no one speaks on, and it's the truth, do your homework, right? The United Homeboys have not been allowed back into the prisons, right? Or at least that prison. Just now I'm hearing that they're allowed to go in certain prisons. Basically got the finger pointed at them, the blame of the riot, man, when it wasn't even their fault. You know, it was something that was happening. And like I said, that just goes to show you, man, it doesn't matter who's on the yard. We see the Johnny Cash, we see the Los Tigres del Norte when they showed up and they performed. I remember being in Tracy when War pulled up. Because, okay, in Tracy Prison, they have a reception side and then they have the main line, which I believe was either Z Dorm or X Dorm at the time, level 2 or 3. And so they would go out to the big yard and they'd have car shows out there. They had War pull up and perform for them. And I remember sitting in the cell in J-Wing, man, if you listened, you could hear the music playing. I was like, damn, bro, I want to stay right here in fucking Tracy. Everybody wanted to stay in Tracy, but none of us ever got action. But nothing popped off that day. But I say that to say this. Doesn't matter who's on that yard. If shit's gonna go down, prison business takes precedent over everything, man. I'm just glad that the Nortenos had they were down to protect the homeboy and pull him out of the way, man, because he definitely isn't involved on that level. But it definitely went down, man. For those that don't understand or never heard that story, true story, facts. Now, as far as Goldtoes giving people weapons and all that, that was rumors, man. And of course, man, they can't just say, hey, the homie went, had a good time, shit cracked off, it is what it is. They always got to say some bullshit, man. But I'm here to tell you, I don't think Goldtoes would involve himself in anything like that, man. He was there to help people, not hurt people, especially not black nor brown, man. That's not how he gets down. With that being said, man, thank you for watching this video. All respects goes out to Goldtoes, goes out to everybody that was on that yard that day, man, black and brown that participated. It's unfortunate that we see minority groups, man, target each other, but that's what they want. That's what they want. There's no one happier when black and brown get off than them from the outside laughing at everyone, man. It's time for black and brown to unite. It's time for brown and brown to unite. And it's time for the gente, man, to get their shit together. Thumbs up or thumbs down. Heavy's going to be the head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive and struggle for what I truly believe in. And that's the betterment of all people. Oh, Goldtoes was like, this is what it is. This is what it is. He said, bro, I'm good. And that fool didn't want no part of none of that shit, shenanigans. And I ain't mad at him. The gun. Respect.